All right, so welcome everybody. My name's Laurie Ferris. I am a chapter coordinator of the Northern California chapter of American Pilgrims on the Camino. I have two other coordinators, Guy Joaquin and Andy Cohn. Andy just did a Camino 101 Basics last Thursday that I co-hosted, and that is available on our YouTube channel. That covers so much, but this is specifically issues and considerations for women. So if you're just getting started planning for your Camino, watch the Camino 101 Basics and download his guide that he created. And this is intended for some specific things that you might be worried about or concerned about. So let me introduce. First off, we have Susan Alcorn. She is both a hiker and a backpacker. She has hiked the entire Pacific Crest Trail and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Wow. She has also hiked extensively in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she and her husband, Ralph, live. She has hiked about 3,500 miles on various Camino routes. She walked her first Camino, the Frances, across Spain in 2001. She had the memorable experience of being on the trail during 9/11. She has hiked the Camino Norte, Primitivo, and Inglés in Spain, and has walked 3 of the 4 major routes in France, the Le Puy, Arles, and Vézelay, each approximately 500 miles. She has also done the Portuguese route from Porto, one of the most popular routes, as well as one of the most shortest. And that's a favorite of many of us. She's also been such an inspiration for me and a role model. I want to keep going like she does. Her and Ralph are always hiking around. They're willing to lead hikes for our chapter. And she has this great monthly newsletter of Bay Area hikes, and she keeps people informed about what's happening in the world of hiking in Northern California and events. So it's an honor to have her here with us today. Also with us, we're lucky to have Laurie Reynolds, aka Peregrina 2000. She is a moderator on the Camino Forum, the one that Ivar has and has had for a long time now. And she's walked a number of Caminos, and I had the opportunity to have a hike with her in Berkeley just last week, and it was so wonderful to meet and hike with her last week. So we have more in common than just our name and the spelling of our names. We both love helping pilgrims, and we love the Camino. So first of all, the Camino, this calling can be very strong. Sometimes you don't know why you're doing it. Sometimes you do. We all have different reasons. Here are just a few of the reasons for doing it. And it's become so popular for a lot of these reasons. And I just want to kind of go over some stats here. I like this chart because it shows a couple of things. Starting with 1991, you can see the blue are the men, red are women. And you can see that it shifts. From 1993, it was raining men on the Camino. And now it's like sisters are doing it for themselves here. So in 2018, that's when it shifted to more women walking the Camino. And fast forward to today, the latest stats here for the whole year last year, about 54% women, 46% men. So there are a lot of us out there, and more each year, it seems. I did peek at the stats, the current stats, like up to the April 15th. And right now, women are behind men. So we got some catching up to do, ladies. And I know some of you are about to leave on your Camino, or you have plans. Here's another stat. Somebody was asking about age. Tends to skew older. But in US pilgrims, tend to skew even older than what this chart shows. The chart is for all of the pilgrims that the Pilgrim Reception Office has taken stats about. And also here's from the Pilgrim Office, this is the latest report. I'm going to get right to it and hand the mic over to Laurie with some safety tips and tricks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Reynolds. I have been walking Camino since I beat you by 1 year, Susan. My first one was in 2000. And it was an experience like no other. And I've been back every year since then, except for our COVID year. And I walk alone. And so I think that's why actually it was Andy who thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to tell Laurie you should talk because I walk alone all the time and I'm old. And it just works great for me. But I did want to go through some safety considerations and some of the mindset things that may be messing with your mind if you think about walking alone. And so I'll start with a couple of practicalities. First, Alert Cops is an app that the Spanish government, the Ministry of the Interior, has produced that has a chat function that allows you to write in English to contact with the emergency responders, and they'll triage you to the right, to whoever you need to be with. The only problem with Alert Cops is that it's very difficult to download in the United States. It's not difficult to download. It's very difficult to get your account activated in the United States because the way they activate the accounts is to send you a text. And if you have a US phone number, the text won't go through. So there is a workaround. And as I told Laurie before, I'm happy to go through it with you if you want to download the app and have it functional before you leave, but you should contact me off at my Gmail account and we can work through it. I do download it. I have never used it, but I download it when I get to Spain and when I put a Spanish SIM card in my phone, and then it's very easy to do. However, I would say that if I ever had a real emergency, and in fact, I have had one, I use 112. For me to go find an app and to start to type a response, it was just, pick up your phone, dial 112, and you'll get sent to the emergency immediately. So I'm not dissing the Alert Cops app because I think it's a great thing and people have used it. But for me, in a true emergency, I think you'd be better off with the 112 because it's instantaneous. So what about what else can you bring along with you to make you safe? A lot of backpacks these days have whistles built in, and I think that's a great idea. And I guess that's sort of where I would stop. On the forum, I don't know if any of you participate in EVAR's forum, but we frequently have these comments about women who want to bring pepper spray or women who want to bring knives and things like that. And that just, for me, personally, I would say that if you're not going to be comfortable walking the Camino without a can of pepper spray, I really think you ought to think about doing something else or walking in a different way, because I don't think pepper spray and knives have any business on the Camino, but that's just me. Okay, so that brings me to walking alone. I walk alone. I walked my first Camino with a college friend that I hadn't seen in 20 years. And over these 25 years, for me, the Camino has really evolved. And for me now, the Camino is about walking alone and being alone with my thoughts and my demons and my angels and my big questions and my small questions. And I just can't imagine walking any other way. Again, this is not a judgment about what's the best way to walk a Camino, but that's just what works for me now. I'm a caregiver at home with my husband in my non-Camino life. And so for me, being able to be out there, have no responsibilities to anyone but myself, and to be able to sort of just revel in the joy of being alive by myself is like, that's what I go to the Camino for. But that's very different than what I went to the Camino for when I first started out. So what I'm saying is not that it's better to walk alone or it's better to walk with someone. It's just something that is so personal and so individual that I think unless you know for sure what the way you want to walk, tying yourself down the least amount possible is the best thing to do. What I mean by that is I have seen so many times someone who starts out with their best friend or their spouse, And 4 days in, it becomes very clear that it's not a good idea. And then what do you do? So I think having your expectations is one thing, but knowing that if things don't work out, you and whoever you're walking with might be able to rearrange and reorient yourselves would be a really good idea. So of course, if you're thinking about walking alone, you start thinking about crime. And let's think a little bit about what the Camino really is in terms of safety. Probably most of you have heard about the horrible, tragic murder of Denise Thiem, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Thiem, which was actually 10 years ago, right around now. It was a shock. It was a terrible, horrible thing. And at the same time, it was even more shocking because of how unusual it was. This was just something that burst a lot of people's bubble. And there was a lot of press at that time. I went back and looked for this article in El País, which is the Spanish newspaper that a very prominent Spanish newspaper, and they did a pretty extensive reporting on safety on the Camino. And this was back 10 years ago. But what they found 10 years ago was that over the previous 20 years, so that would be from 1995 to 2015, there had been between 10 and 15 violent crimes on any Camino across all of Spain. So numbers wise, is it safe? Yes. Numbers wise, it's a lot safer than the town where I live, where we have more than 10 or 15 murders a year. But that, you know, the reality and the facts are one thing, and the psychology of the fear, I think, is something else. But I'll get to that in a minute. And the one caveat I wanted to make about crime and sexual assault on the Camino is the whole issue of flashers. Flashing is not a crime in Spain or in Portugal, as I understand it. It is not criminal. It is not criminal behavior to be nude, to masturbate, to be near people, so long as you don't, or the perpetrator, so long as the perpetrator does not violate your physical safety. So that means that under Spanish criminal law, a lot of these creeps, or all of these creeps who pop out of the bushes when it happens, are not going to feel the force of the law on top of them. But at the same time, I will say, I've seen a tremendous evolution in the attitude of Spanish police from all levels, the national level, the regional level, the state level, local level. They take the Camino safety very seriously, and they will do whatever they can to help women who have experienced this. In many situations, in many towns, there are local ordinances that prohibit masturbation, public masturbation, when it's done with the intent of harassing or trying to provoke women. And so there are sometimes administrative procedures that have happened that on the forum, I sort of get a running tally of how these things go, because a lot of women report back on the forum about what has happened. And there are instances where there's either been a fine or or treatment required, or a meeting with the family. You know, in a lot of instances, these are small towns where these people are well known. The community knows who they are. And a few visits from the police will frequently sort of make the community and the family take better care of the person who, by most accounts, is ill in some way. And needs help. And so I think if this happens to you, this has happened to me probably 9 times over the course of 25 years. The very first, and I can tell you what not to do. And what not to do is what I did on my very first Camino. It was right, you know, after Pamplona, you know, you go up to the hill with all the cutouts there, and then there's a steep down towards Puente de la Reina. And some guy popped out of the bushes, and what did we do? We screamed, we ran, we fell, and it's a terrible rocky descent. We fell, we got blisters all over our feet. And in the end, we were fine. It's a disgusting, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, you know how disgusting and repulsive it feels. unclean. It's just gross, but it happens. Since then, I have gotten some good advice. And now what I do is try to do nothing. Some people say scream and laugh and point. I think that's terrible advice. I think any interaction is likely to increase their arousal. And I think that you just want to keep to yourself as best you can. Don't change anything about your behavior. Don't make eye contact. Just keep on walking. Same speed, no noise, just nothing. That's my advice. Having said this, I mean, I think probably most of us are used to living in towns where there's way more crime, but no flashers. I mean, I've you know, I know a few people have seen out in the wilderness, have seen instances like this, but I think it is much more common on the Camino than it is in most of our lives. So that's something you're just, you know, if you can't get over that, if it makes you, it terrorizes you, then I think there are some easy workarounds. A lot of women don't like it when I say, if you're afraid to walk alone because of this, you should walk with a man. But I'm sorry, I've walked up of my flashing experiences, at least 3 were when I was walking with another woman. So having another woman with you is not going to prevent it from happening. I know it's outrageous. I know that it makes us frustrated and angry that it has to be this way. But I think if you are afraid, that's what you should do. Because, and this is my last point that I'll make before I turn it over to Susan, I think that it is up to you as an individual woman. You know yourself. You know what your tolerance is. You know if you're afraid. I would never tell a woman, oh, get over it. It's safe. You should just walk alone and because you'll prove something to yourself. No. If you're really afraid and can't shake it, you shouldn't walk alone, because that's in my opinion, that's the best way to ruin a Camino, is to walk in fear and anxiety. If you can, you know, process the rational, you know, it's sort of like being afraid, you know, when the airplane drops 20 feet and you know that you're not going to crash, but nevertheless your heart like starts pounding and you get scared. Well, this is sort of the same thing. If reality doesn't calm those fears, then I would just urge you, my own advice would be to just not walk alone then. But if you can sort of say, okay, this is a risk, it's not a huge risk, 9 times out of 10, the flashing, I've never heard of a flasher. And again, I don't mean to dismiss it, but I've never heard of a flasher who did anything more than flash and maybe chase, which is petrifying. So it is up to you as a woman to sort of decide what your comfort level is. But I can tell you, and I'm not a brave person by any means, but I can tell you that I now walk remote Caminos and I never, you know, I just never walk in fear. And I'm so thankful for that, but that may not be you. So you can work it out, and Caminos are wonderful, whether you walk them alone, whether you walk them with one person or with 20. So that's my advice about safety. I hope it's helpful to some of you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say I've walked 3 Caminos alone and 4 with friends. And I feel like a sense of liberation walking alone. Like you can call your own shots.
Yeah.
And sometimes the fear gets to you, but you can shake that off. And I feel safe among pilgrims in northern Spain and Portugal. I think the community appreciates pilgrims, and they kind of go out of their way sometimes to help us out if we're going down a different direction or something. But there are some things you can do, like say you're walking with a friend, but you feel like walking alone one day, you know, you can give each other your Google location. Or you can, if you have iPhones, you can share your device location. So you can find each other, and you can have a plan to meet up either for lunch or at your destination. So don't rule out walking alone if you're with a crowd of people. Give yourself that space and time and to meet other people too. When you're with friends, you tend to not meet the other pilgrims because you're talking to your friend the whole time. So I know like couples who walk together, but they agree to walk separate during the day. You know, you might have a different pace than your friend or your spouse or partners. So yeah, I do feel like definitely safer walking the Camino than walking like in Berkeley at night. So there's that. So I don't want to scare you off, but like to Laurie's point, if you are petrified, you know, consider some options to help you through that.
Yeah.
And was there any other questions? I saw, Jan, were you waving your hand? Do you want to make a point?
I was just curious if walking with walking sticks, did you ever think of your walking sticks as a possible thing for using? And, you know, if somebody came near you, you'd be able to kind of swing them or something, you know, just, it would be but not use it as a weapon. I didn't know. I walk with walking sticks, just being 75 or almost 75.
Yeah, I'm almost 75 too, and I always walk with walking sticks. And the only non-walking stick use I've ever made of them is to use them as laundry lines extended between the chairs. But that's, you know, I guess I've never been confronted with a situation, but I always have, and I just don't know. I just don't know. That's a good. Suppose I could. Yeah, I mean they'll be in my hands, so I suppose I could try to use them. But my instinct would be to get away rather than to.
Yeah, I think just ignore and get away. I think that's the best nonviolent. Yeah, whatever for any nuisance. It's more of a nuisance, not a threat, I think.
Have you had an experience with flashers or anything? No.
I've done it twice in two different Caminos and never had didn't have anything even close. No.
Yeah.
But mine was in 2007 and 2011. So maybe it's just become more you know, there's more people out there and about now. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's kind of ironic because I walk Caminos like the Levante, the Lana, the Catalan, the Serrana, just all these kind of weird Caminos where I go for weeks without seeing anyone. And I've never had an incident on any of those Caminos. It's only been on the Frances, the Norte, and the Portuguese that I've had.
That's what if I were going to guess, that's what I would think too. Because in those early days when I was walking, I was often the only person until I ended up at an albergue or something. Yeah, I never saw anybody on the trail. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. Let's see. Any other questions about safety before we move on? Okay.
Hi, Laurie, this is Donna Lee. I'm sorry, I was not able to get into the group chat, but just a response to using the walking sticks as a weapon. One time when I was on the Norte trail, I was feeling uncomfortable because there was a man following me, kind of, you know, and it wasn't a fellow pilgrim. It was sort of a townsperson, I think. And I felt uncomfortable and, you know, went on the trail, which led me into these woods. And then so hightailing it pretty fast, but what I did grab like a stick, you know, I think I didn't know if I was using my walking sticks, but I just grabbed a stick that was on the trail, you know, to have, you know, with me. And then for myself, and it, you know, could have been my imagination, won't rule that out. You know, I just hightailed it, had my stick, you know, to be in that defensive frame of mind. And then fortunately just kind of went through the very isolated patch and then, you know, was seeing other people, you know, on the trail, and then, you know, lost this person, you know, if he was following me. Like I said, not certain of that. And then another comment on the Norte was the one that I hiked by myself. I mean, instead of hiking with a man, you know, the other thing you can do is, you know, on the trail, you can just sort of keep yourself at a pretty close distance to some mixed groups, you know, because like I had, I was by myself, but there were, you know, as does happen, you just kind of leapfrog, you leapfrog groups, along the trail. And then there were just people that, different couples or mixed groups that you came to know. And so you just kind of keep yourself kind of close to them, not to where you're joining them, you know what I mean, but to where you're at a proximity with them. And I think there were a couple times that I felt that gave me some confidence and comfort.
That's a really good point. If you're on a Camino where there are a lot of people, I mean, I think, yeah, even if you want, you can walk alone and just not with someone. That's a really good point. And I feel, I hope women aren't insulted when I say, if you're afraid, you should walk with a man. I've given advice to women at my university, and I would say to them, don't walk in this park alone. Walk with them. If you're going to be out walking, walk with a man. So I see it as maybe admitting something about me that is less brave than I should be. But I personally, if I felt really scared, I would prefer to have a male with me than a woman, but that's just me.
Right. And fair enough. But I mean, I guess the point the subtlety I'm trying to add is they don't have to be like next to you. You know what I mean? You can have made some friend acquaintance groups, you know what I mean? And you can be sort of at a proximity to them where, within sight,
No, I totally get that. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So walk softly, confidently, and carry a big stick.
Right.
Two hiking sticks. We're going to move on to Susan talking about leave no trace and peeing and pooing in the woods. Take it away, Susan.
Okay, well, Leave No Trace has been around for quite a while. It's a national educational program to inform visitors about reducing the damage caused by outdoor activities, particularly non-motorized recreation. The Leave No Trace principles and practices are based on an abiding respect for the natural world and our fellow wildland visitors. And we can act on behalf of the places and wildlife that inspire us by adopting the skills and ethics that are part of Leave No Trace. So there are 7 principles that have been used for quite a while, and I felt that numbers 1, plan ahead and prepare. Principle 3, dispose of waste properly, and respect wildlife and consider of others were the most relevant to what we are doing out there. But I want to jump back to what Laurie said. I agree. I always hike with my husband on the Camino. I don't always when I'm at home. I hike with other friends or I hike on my own, and I'm comfortable with that. And I also live in a city where it's much riskier than being on the Camino. But I agree with the just go on your way and try not to make eye contact, because my understanding is that whoever wants attention, wants to see your reaction, and don't give them that satisfaction. Just go on and mind your own business. That's what I would personally do. Anyway, back to the principles: plan ahead and prepare. So I know that for some, the question of peeing and pooping on the Camino is a big deal. I think it is to most of us initially. So principle 1, plan ahead and prepare. First of all, you're going to be going by, especially if you're on the Francais, you're going to be going by a lot of cafes, bars, restaurants, and so on during most days. And, feel free to go in there and use the facilities. And you have a couple of options if you do that. One is to leave a tip as appreciation. The other one is just to buy some small item or something to drink, your cafe con leche or whatever you want to do, your soda, and so on and so forth. And that's a widely accepted and popular thing that people do. But of course, that is not sufficient. Sometimes we have other places, other times we have to go. And so the question is how to prepare for that. I do suggest that if you are going to do the squatting method, that you do it at home beforehand in the shower, because it is not necessarily a skill that you're born with. And the last thing you want is to be peeing on your clothes or on your shoes and all of that. And so a little practice is worth your time. You also, if you're going to be peeing outdoors, you want to consider the wind conditions, because you don't want things moving towards you. You want them moving away from you. So, just thinking about those kinds of things. And the third, let's see, carry the materials you'll need. I suggest that you bring, I don't have the real thing, but there's this thing called Kula cloth, which is about this size, maybe a little larger. This is not it, but I don't have one. And you use it, it has a microbacterial whatever properties to make it more sterile, and you use it for when you pee only. And then you can hang it on the back of your backpack until you get a chance to wash it out and that kind of thing. And a lot of people like that. I just happen to be quite comfortable with the squat and the, what am I trying to say? I usually don't use toilet paper. That's the bottom line. I can't think of the term I want to use. But anyway, so in your kit, you're also going to want something to, to be sanitary, to have your Purell or something like that afterwards. If you're talking about pooping, that's a whole different thing, of course. But you should have in your toilet kit some paper, some small amount, and some plastic baggies, because one of the crummiest things that's happening on the Camino, when you consider the numbers, it's understandable, but it's still not pleasant, is that you find toilet papers lots of places. Even back in 2001 when we started, it seemed like every time we found a place ahead that looked like a great place to sit and have a picnic, you didn't want to do it because there was toilet paper all over the place. And there are people who have tried to solve the problem, but it continues. So you have to think in terms of what you can do to make the situation better. And that is to carry out the toilet paper. I also see a lot of Kleenex along the trail. I think that's when people reach into their pocket and pull something out and it falls and they don't realize it. So just an aside that you might keep track of where you put any kind of paper that you might otherwise be dropping along the way. As far as where you're going to pee or poop in the wilderness, the recommendation is that you carry a lightweight trowel in case what you're doing is pooping. And this is one that's one of the, there are more brands, but this one weighs less than 1 ounce. And it's an awful lot easier to use than trying to find a stick that's going to be able to dig what's called a cat hole that is 6 to 8 inches deep. So this is certainly worth investing in. And so you would dig your cat hole and use that for any poop. Stick your used toilet paper in your plastic bag and either, dump it out that night or wash out your bag or have other ones, whatever you want to do. I did want to add, don't think about burning your toilet paper. I know that's something people used to do years ago, but I have heard, and maybe others have too, of forest fires that have been started in various countries by people thinking, I'll just burn this toilet paper and that'll be fine. Well, it doesn't always go all the way out. Anyway, as far as the cat hole, so you dig your cat hole, you poop into it, you use your paper, you put that away the way you're going to put it away, and then you cover it with the dirt that you had taken out of it. Now you want to be about 70 steps, which is about 200 feet away from water, waterways, the trail. I think that kind of covers it. In other words, you don't want to be doing it right next to the tree, especially under a beautiful tree that other people are wanting to use for other reasons. I also wonder the respect wildlife. If you if you bury the toilet paper, and it is scented, animals are going to be attracted to it. And you don't want them, that's why you'd have to have it deep enough for one thing. Because if you don't, then animals are going to get into it and be dragging out whatever you put there. So you cannot just put a rock on top of something and expect that that is the way to do it, because either some animal will be able to get to it, or the next person that comes along and sees that rock and maybe wants to use it for whatever, they're not going to be very happy to find what you have left behind. So do the right thing. Think about others coming along. Think about the environment when you're either peeing or pooping. That's what the respective wildlife was about, because your poop can last anywhere from up 12 months and longer. It depends on the environment, it depends on the weather, it depends on the soil, whether it's rocky or whether it's sandy and that kind of thing, how much rain they get and so on. So it's not like it's going to be gone in a day or two. It's going to be there for a very long time. So just be sure that you do that, and that's a respect for wildlife too. Sometimes, in fact, I've had this personal experience. Animals can be attracted to the salt in your urine, and you know, that's enough said, but that's gross enough.
Okay, let's see. I think we have one more slide here.
Okay. Be considerate of others. No one wants to see your toilet tissues, your Kleenex, and so on. So that's the plan ahead thing. Everybody has to pee and poop, but you certainly can make it so that it's not, it's not infringing on others' rights or privileges or desires. Just
Yeah.
make the Camino the best you can. And then while you're at it, if you can pick up some other litter other than toilet paper along the way, that'd be a great thing too.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Susan. I just want to chime in with another thing I started doing on the Camino, because yeah, you do see a lot of Kleenex on the trail. People blowing their nose, or you see little wrappers. But one thing I've learned to do on the Camino, and I do it at home now too, whenever I use a bathroom, I blow my nose in the toilet paper in the bathroom and dispose of it right there in the toilet. So I don't have a soiled tissue in my pocket. I just get rid of it right there. And then, I have more allergies on the Camino than I do here at home. So my nose is always running. So that's just a little quick thing I do. And every time I use a bathroom, it's habit now. And so one less thing to worry about in my pocket.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to add one more thing. I know a lot of people are concerned about privacy. But there are a couple of ways around that. Maybe you're in an area where there aren't many trees, or maybe you're in a plantation of trees where there are no branches at the lower, at the lower end of the tree. There are a couple of possibilities. First of all, if you've gotten 70 steps off the trail, you're much more likely to be where you won't be seen. I think, in all my miles of being on the Camino, I think I only got sort of caught once, and that's because we were next to a river and in France, and it looked like everybody was coming on their bicycles from one direction, so I kind of hit on the other side. Well, then somebody came from the wrong side. So I moved quickly to get out of the way, but I don't know them, they don't know me, it's gone. Anyway, privacy. One possibility is if you take a hiking umbrella, which I highly recommend for either rain and sun, which I probably won't be able to open since you're here. But anyway, my hiker umbrella serves lots of purposes, and privacy is one of the things it can provide. If you might get a little coverage by putting your backpack where it hides you. And as far as safety, it's a good idea if you're going to be leaving the trail and you're not at all, it looks like it might be a place you could get lost. Be sure you let somebody else know that you're leaving the trail. If you're with a group or a partner or something, be sure that you could be found if you happen to get lost. They would know where you last were. Probably not an issue on the Camino, but there might be places where it would be. I also suggest that you consider, I don't know which is better, but something, if you do happen to get diarrhea or something like that, have something in your kit, or you can add to it in one of the pharmacies, whether it's Pepto-Bismol or Imodium or one of those things. I don't know, but just think ahead about being prepared for that possibility.
Yeah. Thank you. Really good ideas. I do want to address something that came in the questions in the registration. Somebody asked about if an urgent need happens. Biffy bags. I didn't know what these were, so I had to look it up, and I just went down this rabbit hole of research, and I found some useful short videos about these Biffy bags. Now, this would be if you're needing to do a number 2. I put 2 links in the chat, a WAG bag video produced by the Leave No Trace people, and then there's a WAG bag demo by this woman, sporty woman. So if you're curious about that, apparently these Biffy bags or WAG bags are very tiny. So if you're concerned at all about that, you might want to pack one of those.
The bags, when I climbed Whitney, they still had an outhouse at the summit, which was very convenient and a great view. But a few years after that, as the numbers increased, it's a small area and very popular, and it's granite, so there's not like there are places to bury things. And so rather than the Forest Service having to come in with a helicopter every day or so and take out the outhouse and clean it up and all of that and bring it back, they instituted using these bags, which are one-use bags and all that. If you have some real situation where you really want to have something, you have a condition, maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome or whatever, that might make some sense. I don't see myself needing to carry that, but it is an option for those that are really concerned about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to address, shit happens or it doesn't. So the flip side of diarrhea would be constipation. So you might want to have some laxatives. I'm going to go over supplements in my section, but laxatives can help because we often are eating unusual foods. That's not our normal day-to-day type of diet. But anyway, more on that later. I just want to address a couple of tips that came up in the chat. Is try peeing with your backpack on. So 2 people said that, Kelly Bates and Kobe Lafayette. So that's a great idea because you have a heavy backpack on it. It is harder to squat and get back up from that squat. So think about that.
Laurie,
But on the bright side, it's a really good quad strengthener.
yeah, Laurie, can I jump in? It's Kelly Bates.
Yeah, sure, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong hiker, and but I was surprised when I did my Camino because I'm used to peeing. I've peed in the woods my whole life, with a day pack on a day hike. But when your legs are as tired as they are on the Camino, and you've got a 15-pound pack on, it's really a different ball game. And we've all either almost gotten in the position or gotten in the up the turtle upright upside down position. And this poor delightful 80-year-old woman that we were walking with got stuck in that position with her pants around her ankles, and other pilgrims were coming by, and it's a different it's a different skill if you've never done it before. Sorry, I don't mean to elaborate about such a sort of silly thing, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Biffy bag, somebody. Okay, yeah, check the chat for more good tips from our participants here. And let's see where we are. Okay, so after all that, safety first and what to do when you have to go. I just want to proclaim my love for this Camino community. And once you get started doing Caminos, you have joined a group of people who have kind of a positive outlook on life. They like to get out and hike on the weekends, or every day, in many cases, and they're staying healthy together. And I was thinking, so wellness is the way. I had a presentation a couple years ago called Wellness on the Way, but really once you get involved in this community, you're looking for opportunities to hike more and more, and it becomes easier and easier. And you get home from one Camino and you might be planning your next Camino, or all of a sudden when you get home, everything is walking distance. And that's a good thing to have as we age, is just walk more. And I was thinking about how the Camino is kind of like a moving blue zones. The blue zones are these places in the world that were documented by a National Geographic writer who researched that the longest living people in the world are from these communities, and they have some things in common. All of them have things in common, but I kind of equate the Camino to a moving blue zone. So you're moving naturally, your daily physical activity right there. You got the right outlook, your purpose. Downsizing. After my first Camino, I got rid of a lot of stuff. The blue zones people tend to eat wisely. It's questionable if Camino pilgrims can eat wisely, but I like to think that you can, and I'll show you some food and snack options later. Yeah, these communities drink a little wine each day, some of them, and pilgrims also indulge in wine or not. But this one really gets to me, and this is like probably the closest thing. So the blue zones, the big part of it is belonging, feeling like you're part of a tribe. In Japan, it's called a moai. The people who grow up together, they stay friends for their whole life. On the Camino, you might call it kindred spirits, or your Camino family, or just simply a Camino community. Back here at home, with your chapters. So that's a wonderful thing. And so connection is so important as we age, becomes more important. So yay for us, yay for pilgrims, keep doing it. And forest bathing, Shirin Yoku, that is just so healing for the body, mind, and soul. Here's one of my favorite types of walks, a narrow gravel path with a little tree tunnel here and foxgloves. Grounding, like this picture on the left, it's like you're walking on a path like 10 feet underground. You see a lot of these types of grooves, these paths, and you're walking on the paths that pilgrims have walked for hundreds of years, some of them. So it's really an experience to ground yourself. And there's water almost everywhere. Most Caminos have, creeks, streams, crossing, not all of them, but a lot of the popular ones do. Some you're walking alongside the ocean, beaches, a slower pace of life. On the Invierno, I was like the only pilgrim walking for I didn't see another pilgrim till the third day. So I got to talking to some of the locals, some of these elderly people here. This woman was herding sheep and goats, and her husband was driving a tractor. And this guy over here on the right was tending to his flock and his farm. So it's just a slower pace of life. And it's nice to step away from our fast-paced lifestyles to see how other people are living. And then, if you walk alone, you probably will encounter a lot of other friends that you're walking with, and you become connected to your Camino family or your tribe or your moai, and you kind of look out for each other. So that's another benefit. Just some quotes I kind of feel like they really embody the Camino and pilgrimage. And this might be my favorite. We have it on the back of our t-shirts, attributed to St. Augustine. So the Camino is an amazing thing, but it is not easy. So number one, you will want to pack light. We covered this a lot last Thursday in the Camino 101. You want to eat right. You can split stages. Nobody has to do like the traditional Brierley stages if you don't feel like it. In fact, a lot of people recommend going slow at first, you know, not going as far. Here's an example of a stage that I split. Instead of an 18-mile day, it was an 8.5-mile day, and there was a lot of elevation gain. So that was a wise move, and you can always do that. You can also take rest days. You can forward your backpack. This comes in handy if you have an injury. You can always go to a pharmacia. They're all over the place. In the bigger cities, some are open 24/7. And you can, if needed, take a bus, train, or taxi.
Laurie, could I just pop into, this is Laurie,
Yeah.
just about pharmacies, because I think for us in the United States, it's a real revelation to see how much authority and independence pharmacists have in Spain. They are really sort of the first point for medical treatment for many people. And I just think it's always, if you've got something and you don't know what to do, go to a pharmacist. They are well trained, and they're always, in my experience, they're both always willing to help, and they always give me the best restaurant recommendations in any town. I don't know why, but anyway, really highly recommend the pharmacists in Spain, because they can do more than your US pharmacists can.
So true. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see. So I think this is a big thing that could happen on the daily. You know, you want to have some snacks so you don't get to that hangry state. And you can pick up some fruit at a market the day of or the night before, and just enough for your day. I think this is that little donut shaped peach that is very common in spring all over. These little easy to peel oranges. Cherries are my favorite. Cherry season is like now. And so that the fruit will help you with the constipation issues if you're eating a lot of like starchy food, and there is certainly a lot of that, potatoes and bread and all that stuff. Nuts and seeds, easy to eat, available everywhere. Gazpacho is so good. It's full of electrolytes, all your vegetables. You can drink your vegetables. You can find these in markets. All kinds of yummy cheeses. If you're a meat eater, there's pate and fouette, these sausages that are great for picnics. I always like their natural yogurt, not the sweetened ones, but those are good for protein. And oh man, they have the best chocolate bars. And those are good for sustenance and very fun to share. So a lot of times, you know, people have snacks in their pack, and an impromptu picnic where everybody shares their snacks is a kind of a thing. So now restaurants. So a lot of times in many places, the restaurants don't open for dinner till 8 p.m. You know, the Spaniards don't eat till late. But if you go to a bar, you know, you can get some good snacks or tapas, and sometimes they're very hearty, and that can hold you over. And sometimes that might be all you need for a light dinner. And then this is pulpo. If you eat seafood, this is wonderful to try. It's a delicacy in Galicia. It's from that region, and it's really tasty. Here's a paella that was served at an albergue on the Primitivo.
Lori,
And
do
then
you
this-
know that, sorry, do you know that Juanma now owns an albergue in Sirauki, right after Puente La Reina?
Who does?
So the guy holding the paella, he and his wife now
Oh,
albergue on the Frances. Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah,
Good to know. That's cool that you know them.
yeah.
And this is just typical, like in a bar, you know, there's this jamon right there with the towel over it and a Spanish telenovela on the TV, kind of loudly playing. So I love Spain. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you'll get some salads. You know, salads are usually one of the 3 courses, part of the 3-course meal. This is a typical salad. Sometimes it has tuna on it. A lot of times it has tuna on it. Like this is like a typical salad or salad niçoise if you're in France. This is like the main course on a 3-course pilgrim meal. Chicken, roast chicken and potatoes. Potatoes and French fries are very common. Those are things that you can, if you eat this piece of chicken or your main, whatever it is, you can save those potatoes and put them in a Ziploc bag and snack on those the next day, so you don't get the hangries. Padron peppers are amazing over there. Definitely try those. And I love their potato chips too. And chocolate con churros. This is an indulgence, but look at that chocolate. It's like warm chocolate pudding. And you dunk your churro in there. It's so good. A few times I've been served like, here's fresh churros served with my cafe con leche. And this was on the Ingles. I found that the Ingles, for some reason, they set up like some kind of pastry or sweet treat with every cafe. And here's kind of like not an ideal one, this package thing. It's like a Twinkie. But hey, if you're desperate, you know, you have something there. So these are just some things that I found, some issues that I've had. And I just think about like necessity is the mother of invention. Like on my 4th Camino, I was doing the invierno. I thought I was done having periods. I was like, maybe, I don't know, 6 months into menopause or so I thought, and all of a sudden I had some gushing flow, and I didn't prepare for that. I didn't think I'd be having a period, but of course pharmacies have everything unless they're closed, and if it's a Sunday, sometimes they are closed. So I just had to get creative, and we've probably all done this. You just wad of toilet paper and, you know, put it in your panties and change it out. I don't mean to get too graphic here, but the other thing that I had at that same time, horrible cramps to the point where I had nausea. I was throwing up. I could not keep down a painkiller. So I thought about what I have in my kit. It's the Salon Pause patches. Let's see, I have one somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. These things, pain reliever patches that I pack these for like knee pain or foot pain, but I put them on my belly, and within 20 minutes, my horrible cramps went away. So on that particular Camino, I lost a lot of blood. I was anemic, felt a weakened state. I get to this albergue on the Invierno, and this woman is like a doctor. Laurie, maybe you know her. She's taking care of her mother. Her mother's in her 90s, and she wrote a guidebook.
Asun, yeah.
Yeah. So she saw me, and I was pale and weak, and she's like, hold on, I have something for you. And she gave me a packet of liquid iron supplement that I put in my water, and it's like orange flavor. So it's like drinking orange juice, and it brought my iron back. And she gave me like 6 of those, and she said, you have to take a rest. You can't walk this next day. And she told me once a day there's a train to get to your next stage, and you take that. And it was right before Monte.
Furado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've never seen those iron packets. I was so grateful for that. I offered her money and she said, no, you take that. And so sometimes you encounter a Camino angel to set you on your way or to help out. And and the bus, train, and taxi options are there for you. Let me just check the stat. There's something else in the chat about pharmacies. But here are a few things that I feel like I bring these. I want to stay healthy. I want to keep myself hydrated. And so these are the things that I bring, like an electrolyte packet to add to your water bottle. If you're getting tired in the afternoon, it gives you that extra boost. These other things, a few years ago, I popped my knee meniscus, and it was really painful. I was worried I wouldn't be able to go on my 2022 Camino. I started taking collagen peptides, the powder that I put a spoonful in my coffee every day, and I haven't had creaky knees ever since. And at night I take magnesium for your muscles, and it also helps you sleep. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the laxative pills are so tiny, you can bring a few of those. And if you don't have any, or if you don't bring them, you can always find those in a pharmacy.
I wanted to add to the part about hydration, because
Yes.
I think a lot of people perhaps don't drink enough because they don't want to have to carry it, or they just don't think to do it enough. So electrolytes are great to have it to put in the water or so on. But also, it's my understanding that as much as I love beer and it's just so refreshing, it's also somewhat dehydrating, as is, I think, most caffeine. So, consider that if you're drinking a beer, it's not the same as drinking water, and hydrating you. So just something to consider.
Mhm. Yeah, there's all kinds of good little packets. In Spain, they're not so big on the packets. When you go look for electrolytes in a pharmacy, they're more like in a tube with little tablets in them. So
Mhm.
you put the tablets in your water bottle.
Right. That's
So
what
it's nice if you have a big mouth water bottle to fit those tablets in, because sometimes they're big.
Mhm.
So revive. So, stretching or doing yoga is wonderful for your body. This is at an albergue in Ponferrada that I volunteered at for a few days, and I started teaching yoga class, and these people just kind of joined me. I just started doing yoga on this lawn here, and one was a hospitalero, and others were just tired hikers from that long stage that day. It's not super realistic to be doing a full-on yoga. If you have a daily practice, it's hard to fit that in. And this was a place that happened to have extra yoga mats, and so I was able to borrow that mat and do that outside. But what you can do is incorporate some stretches throughout your day. So even in your yoga bed, in your bunk bed or your bed, you can do a lot of stretches in the morning. And then throughout the day, you can like roll your wrists around, release tension, do some wrist and arm and finger stretches, and just rotate, because your hands might be tired from gripping the poles. And then, take off your pack and like do some shoulder rolls to stretch that upper body. If you're having a tough time walking and it's like your day's going, you can kind of like think of a mantra with every footstep, or just listen to your breath. And that kind of brings you back to being mindful and in the moment, and it can get you through a challenging time. Some people like to bring these therapy balls. They're small ones, made out of cork, or tennis balls, which are a little heavier. And if there's anything you can fit into your day, I recommend the waterfall pose, which is legs up the wall. I see pilgrims doing it, everywhere. It keeps the swelling down in your feet. So throughout the day, when you have a break, you can do like what this guy's doing here. At the end of your day, at the bunk bed, the top bunk or the bottom bunk, depending on how much space, or just your hotel, just put your legs up. And 10 minutes of this rest, I swear, my pain in my legs disappears faster than an ibuprofen and a beer. And look at these two big guys up in the top bunks doing their waterfall pose. Okay, here's another thing you can encounter. This is in Portugal, in Caldas de Reis, this place where it's hot springs and you can put your feet in there. And that's a really wonderful thing to do, provided you do not have blisters. It would be like adding salt to the wound if you had blisters going in this hot water. But what feels really good, if you have blisters or not, or just tired feet, is cold plunging into streams or lakes or any body of water or fountains. Some albergues have fountains you can use. Here's a little tip I discovered. When you have a hotel room with a bathtub, go to the market and get yourself a kilo or 2 of sea salt and put it in your tub. And you can have a nice relaxing spa bath, and it really helps relieve soreness in your muscles and your legs and your back. And it's cheap. Look at that, like less than €1 for a kilo there. So at this point, I'm going to leave the camera on a little bit. If there's anybody who wants to share something or have a question with the camera rolling for the greater good, because we're going to share this later, now's the time to speak up. And I do see we have Kimberly Wright has joined us. Yay, Kimberly.
Hello.
Yeah, can you unmic?
I did.
Yeah, sweet. Hello, friend.
Hello, how are you?
Great. I know your voice is strained right now.
It's actually just coming back. I caught a flu bug. I went for a hike, and while I was out hiking, I just kept clearing my throat and rubbing my nose, and I thought it was allergies, and it just progressively got worse. So I picked up something. And so now I'm in the process of trying to get well as quickly as I can, because next week I leave for Portugal, where I will stay 90 days. And so I just want to feel good and be able to enjoy my time there. But thank you for inviting me to join you on this Zoom call. I wanted to be able to share. I don't know everyone, obviously, in the audience. I live in Ripon, so I'm kind of centrally located between, obviously, the Bay Area and Sacramento. And so I've had the opportunity to participate in both chapter meetings as well. And so I like to think that I'm a part of both chapters as well, but I think I probably have attended more functions for the Sacramento group. But with that being said, I did my first Camino in 2018, and I did it as a solo journey. But one of the things, and please forgive me if you can't hear me, I will certainly try to speak louder. But one of the things I found that I stressed over was my hair. And this wasn't just the normal, women worrying about what are you going to do with your hair. This was, what is an African American woman going to do with her hair on the Camino? I was going to be gone, for, close to 40 days. And I thought, I'm probably going to lose most of my hair. It's going to break off. I don't get to do the same upkeep on it. And please know anything that I share with you is certainly my opinion and my perspective. I don't represent the entire race, but there certainly is commonality in what I'm saying. And that is our hair doesn't make moisture. We have to add moisture to our hair. So that meant I had to decide, am I going to carry products? And of course, I couldn't factor products in to that 10% of body weight. And I just thought, my goodness, I don't know what to do. And so I decided to keep it simple. And when I arrived and did my Camino, I decided to French braid my hair. Laurie, I sent you a photo. I'm not quite certain if you were able to share that photo, but I just wanted you to understand the perspective of this photo. And I actually have a lot of hair. It doesn't look like I do because I have it braided and I have it under a buff. But after walking all day on the Camino and everyone's tired and you jump into the shower and you are, getting set up and everything, I would do all those things, but I would sit on the edge of my bed and I would take my hair down out of my braids, and my hair would just be this big afro. And I almost didn't have the energy to comb my hair, let alone have to go through the routine of combing it out and figuring out what am I going to put in it that adds some moisture to it, and then rebraiding it. But that was something I had to do every day. And so what I found was the easiest thing for me to do was I had stopped at a local supermarket and I had purchased, that's it. So the picture on the top left is what my hair looks like after it's washed. And the picture next to that on the right is kind of like how I look now, where I have a buff on it. And then the picture underneath, the one with the hair is down, is that was what I considered my fancy look, because I would wear a head wrap on it at the end of the day. But underneath that head wrap, my hair was braided. Thank you, Laurie. But I would stop at the grocery store and I would purchase olive oil, regular cooking kitchen olive oil. And I would use that to put in my hair. And that actually provided just enough moisture for me to not have any breakage. And of course, I didn't want to carry olive oil with me every day. So it was just more cost effective for me to buy cheap olive oil and then at the end of the day, donate it to the kitchen and let people cook it and use it. And then I just go on my merry way. And then once a week, I would come off of staying at albergues, and I would stay at a hotel, and I would wash my hair. Because when we were washing, taking a shower and stuff in an albergue, we have to be considerate of the amount of time that we're in and in those showers. Some of the showers, of course, have a time limit because the water will cut off, but most of the time you're on the honor system. Well, with that much hair, it takes quite a bit of time for it to soak up water and then get the soap in there and wash it good. So that was my treat to myself, to come out of the public albergues and maybe get a private one or get a hotel room and get in there and get a good washing and use my kitchen olive oil and get in there and rebraid my hair and start that process all over again. And I was happy to say that at the end of the Camino, when I really truly thought that my hair would not survive, and I just thought, well, I'll probably have to cut it off. I actually was going to shave all of my hair off. All the hair that you saw, I was going to buzz cut it and not have any hair on the Camino. That's how concerned I was over what am I going to do with hair. My hair actually wound up growing. So I don't know what was in that olive oil. But it was very healthy for my hair. And so altogether, I've done 4 Caminos, and it was only that very first one that I stressed over, hair care. And going forward, I have no issue with how I maintain, keeping my hair up while I'm doing a Camino. And like I said, to make myself look a little fancier, I carried a head wrap that at the end of the day, I took off the buff I redid my hair, and then I wore the head wrap. So people saw me looking a little different. I never wore my hair down. It was way too much of an effort for me to do that. That's for me, that's something that's a special thing. That's arriving in Santiago and having a little bit more time to do your hair and then have people to say, I don't recognize you as a result.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I think we can all relate to Bad Hair Day and the invention of the buff, which is a Spanish invention too, by
I
the way.
love it. I love the
Um,
buff. I mean,
buff.
I'm committed to a buff. I have on one right now. So the other thing I wanted to just kind of, talk about, and it's the issue of race. And it's something that for me that is insensitive, but I recognize that for each individual, it might be. And so I certainly am sharing just my experience and my perspective when I've done my Caminos. And I have like 3 different stories to share, and they're very brief. But one involved a gentleman. His name was Paul, and Paul was from Ireland. And every time Paul saw me, he would ask me very specific questions about being Black and walking the Camino and what led me to do it, and if I felt uncomfortable, and did I feel underrepresented. And so he asked me so many questions regarding this subject. I had to ask him, are you writing a book? Because I got the impression that maybe he was just, fact finding and using me as a subject matter for a book. But it turns out it wasn't. It was just something that he was just very curious regarding. And so I, answered his questions. I didn't have any concerns with, the type of questions that he was asking me. I was just curious. The second, incident that I had regarding race was I was in Logroña and I stayed in a hostel, not an albergue. And so as a result, in the hostel, there are people who aren't walking the Camino that's staying there, in addition to people who are doing the Camino. And so I encountered a young man who was from Germany, and he had such a preconceived notion about African Americans in the United States. And he wanted to share that with me. And that included me living in a country that doesn't love me, doesn't appreciate me, and how we all lived in poor conditions, did not have the opportunity for education, and so on and so forth. And so I let him share, his thoughts with me. And then I gave him the opportunity to let me speak. And I was able to just kind of go over my background with him and to let him know that, there certainly we have poor in the United States, but poor people in the United States isn't relative to just one race of people. There's poor in all different nationalities, just as there's rich and just as there, is middle class in all nationalities as well. He was still hell-bent on believing that I needed to be saved. And so we just continued to exchange dialogue without, for me, getting offended that this young man, and I'm going to say he was probably about 21, held such a strong view and opinion. I think for me, what changed things was when I found out his background. He was born in the United States, and he lived as a child in Modesto, California. And if you know Modesto, California and Ripon, California, we are just 2 towns away from one another. That's probably literally 6 minutes away. And so I had such a connection to this young man who was technically for me like a homeboy. But he had no memory of the United States. His mother had remarried and moved to Germany and raised him there. And so all of his views was how things were shared through the media as well. But we were able to bridge from that conversation to, has he ever been back to Modesto? And let's talk about that community and the community that I live and how I raise my children and so forth. And it was such a great interaction between us that the young man wanted to know about the Camino because he was staying in a hostel. So he didn't even know why I was there as part of the Camino. He later went on and got a credential, and I ran into him walking the Camino from Logroña. And I was so pleased to see that as well. So, and I will just forever remember him. His name was Jacob, smart young man. I hope that he continues to grow and learn and realize that, the beliefs that we have can be certainly changed over time as we interact with others and we allow ourselves to, to see a different point of view. The third thing that I wanted to share was I was doing the spiritual variant with a friend, and we had arrived in Armentiera, and we were staying at the monastery there. And if you ever have the opportunity to stay there, it's such a wonderful, unique experience, and I suggest that you do so. Well, we were going to attend the Mass service for the pilgrims, and we were told in advance that no pictures were allowed. We couldn't take pictures of the nuns when they come out. And so I'm sitting there and just waiting for the nuns to come out. And they started to file out one by one. And towards the end, this little dark skin, because I can't say what nationality she was, but she had skin coloring the same as mine. She comes walking out, and they all had their heads down. And then they got into their, into the pew, and they looked around, and she looked up, and we made eye contact. And the way in which she looked at me, I recognized that I represented the trifecta for her. I was a person of color like her. I was a pilgrim walking the Camino, and I was raised Catholic, which is not actually very common for African Americans. We usually are Baptists, but I was raised Catholic. So this nun gets up, and she starts to walk through the different pews and shake hands with, people. But I had a feeling she was trying to make her way towards me. And so I just waited patiently. And so when she made her way towards me, she reached out and grabbed my hand, and she pulled me in, and she hugged me. And she said something to me, and it was in Spanish, but so I'm not quite certain, but it was just like a moment that we shared. And I'm not putting all that just to be able to say that that was about race. That was just about a connection. When you see someone that has been on a journey that you've been on, and they look like you, whether you're a female and you see another female, that's what the Camigas are all about. It's another woman that's walking the Camino, and you just have that connection. And so this woman, I could tell, had such a connection with me. And I think she had a sense of pride for the fact that I was a pilgrim, and the fact that I knew and understood the church service because I was raised Catholic, I think meant a lot to her. And it certainly meant a lot to me as well. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Kimberly, because we did have a question. Somebody was wondering about that.
What was the question?
It was racial differences on the Camino. And let's see.
I think, people will say, because I've seen Camino forums where they will say, are there any mosquitoes on the Camino? And then you will get 100 people chiming in, and they will say, no, there are no insects on the Camino. And I want you to know that's because all those insects would find me. And I was a person that was always bitten from head to toe, so much so that I get such an allergic reaction to so many of the bites. And so when you spoke about going to the pharmacy, I can tell you that for me was a godsend, because I had so many bites that I went to the pharmacy to get a product called After the Bite. And the pharmacist looked at me, and she was touching my different bites, and she said, no, you're too far gone. I just had so much histamine build up in my body that I needed to take an antihistamine pill, and I had to take some Benadryl and some cream and all of that as well. The other example is when people say, do you have to worry about dogs on the Camino? And they say, oh, no, don't worry about you. Now, there's dogs that guard property, but they won't bother you. I've been attacked twice. And I don't say that to scare people. I say that to be able to say things do happen. Things do happen. And so you deal with it and then you move on. And so could there be an issue of race where someone may be hostile or someone may be overly inquisitive? Absolutely. You just have to decide for yourself how you wish to handle that situation, but don't let it affect your Camino in such a negative way. Excuse me. I'm going to have to mute it for a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I want to look into the chat and also check in with everybody to see if you have any questions that you'd like. And I don't see any hands up. So, but I did see a new question in the chat about what to do in an emergency. Well, like your first stop should always be a pharmacy. If you're not near a pharmacy, you know, check with the hospitalero at your albergue or anybody that you see, your friends, and you'll get referred to help. You know, what level of care you need depends on what your state is, but the healthcare and medical services in Spain is excellent.
You know, Laurie, can I just add a couple of things about that?
Yeah, please.
Americans typically go with, if they don't have travel insurance, they're going to have to pay for some of their care. And if you are in a public hospital or a public clinic that charges, you will not be able, they're going to send you a bill. You're not going to be able to pay there. And it could be months, many months of trying to figure out how to do a bank transfer and a lot of frustration. And so one thing that I think a lot of us have decided that if the need arose, we would try to get to a private hospital, because they take your credit card right away. They won't even let you in without your credit card. And then you don't have to worry about the transfer and the bill coming later and stuff, because the Spanish public healthcare system is wonderful, but it's hard for them to incorporate Americans into it because we don't have the healthcare card and we don't have, we're not part of their system. And so it sometimes causes problems.
I have the Spirit of the Camino on here, but really what I want to get to, I know some of you might need to leave, but here's a survey QR code. I just also put the link in the chat. So you can either scan this with your phone or go into the chat and click on it. This is the first time we're doing a dedicated Camino presentation and gathering just for women. I don't know if it's been done in other chapters, but it's certainly the first time in our chapter, and we have over 65% women. So we are happy to have so many people on here today and asking great questions. Oh yeah, I'm seeing one here. A question about being vegan on the Camino. So in the chat, Laurie has put a link, the nomadicvegan.com. I will say that I was vegan for about a year during COVID, but when I went on my first Camino after COVID, this 2022, I decided to open up my options and be like a flexitarian. So I ate a lot of seafood, which I love anyway, but I tended to try to eat more vegetables and fruits. But it's possible to be a vegan, and I respect those who are vegan. If you want to be a purist and stick with that on the Camino, there's ways you can do it. Like I had the best avocado toast on the Camino Portuguese spiritual variant at this little restaurant right on the way down from Armentaria. And you'll find places, and you can ask if you have like a 3-course pilgrim menu. you can ask for 2 sides or, something. So, it's challenging being vegan sometimes here in America. And so you just have to, look around a little bit more and maybe bring some snacks along. If you're a fan of peanut butter, you can do that. I know the Australians like to bring a little jar of Vegemite. Yeah, Linda, bring a rain jacket in May for sure.
Well, looks like you have a hand, somebody's,
Where is
Jan Ramsey.
Jan? Okay, yeah, Jan, go ahead.
You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmute. Okay, I know there was a little bit of conversation about the whole bed bug thing. Has that become more of an issue in the last years or not? I've just heard noise about it, but I haven't really had anybody talk about real experience with bed bugs.
I've had a lot of experience with bed bugs.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But I think that's because I think that people who tell you that they've never been bitten by a bed bug and there are no bed bugs on the Camino, they're very lucky people. And what my doctor friends tell me is that there are some people who get no reactions to bed bug bites. So, and I unfortunately am someone who gets terrible reactions to them. So I think they're there. I think you just have.
Did you use tea tree oil or what did you use?
No, what I used was, well, I treated my bag afterwards with paramethrin, which I know some people don't want to do. But that wasn't going to help me with my incident. It would help me going forward. But no, I think in one case, I had to go to a doctor and the doctor gave me this is like 15 years ago. The doctor gave me some kind of, I don't know if it was an antibiotic or what, but no, it was a cream. I think the best thing to do if you get bed bugs is just isolate all your stuff, put it all in a hot dryer, don't wash it. And then I mean, you have to keep going on. I think the bugs are transmitted, hop rides on backpacks and stuff. And a lot of albergues are getting very, very, I don't want to say anal because they're just being very cautious because they know what it does, to have them, to get an infestation. So I think they're there. And so what have you had them, Jan? Have you had?
I ended up with them toward the end. I think that was what they were. Yeah, they were little red bites. And I think the pharmacist gave me tea tree oil. I was trying to remember, but I'm going back a lot of years. So.
Well, one thing that I always do is when I get home, I take off all my clothes and my backpack in the garage, and I don't go into the house with anything because I have had a friend who brought them into her house from the Camino.
Oh my gosh.
It was almost $10,000 and many, many just horrible experiences with exterminators, and they had to move out. And so I think, I think you have to try to be responsible so that you don't, carry on keep it going. But I think the best way to do that is just to put everything into a hot dryer and then just go from there and be careful. But as I said, I think making sure you don't bring them home is as important as treating them when you're there.
Okay.
I've seen them, I think once. Sometimes I look under the mattress and whatever to see if there's anything suspicious looking. We spray the outside of our backpacks with promethium and the outside of my sleeping bag, which is what I usually sleep with. And I also carry a large, I think it's called a turkey baster bag. It's so large, it's like a hefty bag. I line the inside of my backpack with that. Both because of any kind of insects and also because of, to keep things dry in case there's some kind of leakage. So everything I have is inside that bag, which is.
Okay. So that's a good idea. So then everything's inside that plastic bag. So even if you picked up a bed bug on the outside of your pack, it's not going to be on your inside.
Right. And the outside is also of my backpack is sprayed too. So.
So how often do you spray that?
Oh, before I leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.